Hey, Reddit. I never thought I'd be one of those people airing out their dirty laundry online, but I need to get this out. My story's not some dramatic Hollywood blockbuster or a soap opera. It's my real, fucked up life. If you've ever had your heart ripped out, then you know what I'm talking about. This is about betrayal, revenge, and maybe a little bit of stupidity on my part. But it's all true. Every word. Let me just cut to the chase. My wife cheated on me for money. Not for love, not for passion, just for cold, hard cash. She hooked up with some guy because he could give her the things I couldn't. Expensive things, luxury shit. And looking back, I feel like a complete idiot for not seeing it sooner. I mean, she played me, and I let her. But let me start at the beginning. My name doesn't really matter for now, but let's just say I'm your average guy. I work in IT. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. I've always dreamed of breaking out of the corporate grind, starting my own business. Something in tech, maybe an app, maybe some kind of IT consulting. Just making a name for myself. But dreams take money, and I didn't have a lot of that lying around. I guess that's where some of the problems started. Enter Emma, my wife. Or should I say, my ex-wife now. Emma's the kind of woman who turns heads when she walks into a room. Picture this. Long, dark hair that always seemed to fall perfectly in place. A smile that could melt ice. And a body that'd make most men lose their train of thought. She knew she was beautiful, and she used it. Trust me, she fucking used it. When we met, I thought I was the luckiest guy alive. She seemed perfect, fun, smart, and yeah, she had expensive taste, but I figured, who doesn't want nice things, right? At first, it was small stuff. A designer handbag here, some overpriced shoes there. I didn't think much of it because, honestly, I thought I was the problem. Like, maybe I just wasn't making enough, and I should work harder. But as time went on, I started to notice more. She wasn't just into fashion. She was obsessed with it. She had this thing for high-end luxury brands. The kind of shit you see in celebrity Instagram feeds. She'd talk about how she deserved to have the best because, well, she looked the best. In her mind, beauty wasn't just a gift. It was a fucking currency. And I didn't realize that until it was too late. Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't broke. We weren't struggling to put food on the table or anything like that. We had a decent apartment. We went on the occasional vacation, but I wasn't rolling in cash either. My job was steady, and I was doing well for myself, but I wasn't making the kind of money to buy $1,500 smartphones and $600 blouses every other month. And that's where the tension started. We'd argue about money, but not in the let's sit down and figure this out kind of way. It was more like she'd make these passive-aggressive comments like, it'd be nice if we could take a real vacation for once. Like, somewhere exotic. Or, oh, I saw this amazing dress today. It'd look so good on me, but I guess I'll just wait until we can afford it. It drove me insane. I was busting my ass at work, trying to save for our future, and here she was treating life like some luxury shopping spree she was missing out on. I tried to explain to her that we needed to live within our means, but she'd just get quiet. That kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're failing, like you're not good enough. I started picking up extra work where I could. Freelance gigs, side jobs, anything to make more money. I had this idea for a tech startup that I thought could really take off, but we were stuck in this financial loop. Every time I tried to save, something came up. Usually, it was her wanting something new. It was like she had a bottomless appetite for shit we didn't need. The first real red flag? The phone. We were having dinner one night, nothing special, just some pasta and wine at our tiny kitchen table. Her phone was sitting there, right next to her plate, and I reached over for the bread or something, I don't even remember. As I stretched my hand toward the middle of the table, she quickly snatched up her phone like it was a grenade about to go off. I froze. It was such a weird reaction. You got something to hide? I asked, half joking, but I was dead serious. She gave me this look, this cold, hard look that I'd never seen before. No, she said, flat and defensive. Everyone's allowed to have their own space. You don't need to touch my stuff. That didn't sit right with me at all. We'd never had secrets between us before. At least, I didn't think we did. But that night, I realized something had shifted. Something was wrong, and I didn't know what it was. From then on, Her phone was like a vault. She started carrying it everywhere, even to the bathroom. And not just carrying it, clutching it, like she was afraid it'd spill her secrets the second I got near it. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who goes through his wife's phone. But something was eating at me. One day, when she was at work, I decided to try my luck. I found her phone on the kitchen counter, and I picked it up, heart pounding in my chest like I was about to defuse a bomb. Locked. Of course, it was locked. And it wasn't just her usual passcode. No, she had changed it. I didn't know what to do with that anger. I put the phone back, trying to act like nothing had changed, but inside, I knew everything had. Then came the handbag. You know how people say the devil's in the details? Well, in this case, the devil was in a fucking handbag. She had this new purse she'd been parading around, telling me it was a really good fake that she'd gotten online. But one day, curiosity got the better of me. I was sitting alone in the apartment, staring at that bag like it was mocking me. I grabbed it and started Googling. Turns out, that really good fake was an original. $3,000 retail. I couldn't believe it. I sat there on the couch, phone in hand, looking up every detail of that brand, checking serial numbers, stitching patterns, the whole deal. There was no doubt. It was real. And that's when everything started to click. The phone, the clothes, the shoes, all of it. She wasn't buying knockoffs. She wasn't getting this stuff with her paycheck either. Someone else was paying for it. I confronted her about it that night. Is this bag real? I asked her, holding it up like Exhibit A in a courtroom. She didn't miss a beat. No, of course not. It's a really good copy. You can't even tell the difference, can you? But this time, I wasn't buying her bullshit. I knew the truth. She was lying to my face, and I felt like a complete idiot for believing her all this time. But I didn't let it turn into a fight. Not yet. I wasn't ready. I needed more than just a hunch. I needed proof. And when I found it, well, things were going to get a lot worse before they got better. This was just the beginning. I didn't know how deep this rabbit hole went, but I was about to find out. So, here's where things start getting real. After that whole handbag incident, I knew I couldn't just let things slide anymore. I couldn't sit there and keep pretending everything was normal while my wife, Emma, the woman I thought I knew, was out there lying to my face. But I didn't want to confront her without knowing all the facts. I needed to catch her in the act, so to speak. One morning, I got a day off, but Emma didn't know that. She was up early, dressed in one of her perfectly put-together outfits, makeup on point, ready to head to work, or so she said. That's when the idea hit me. Why not follow her? If she was lying to me, I'd catch her in the act. I figured, worst-case scenario, she'd actually be going to work and I'd be wrong. But something told me she wasn't. She kissed me goodbye like usual, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. I waited a few minutes, just to make sure she wouldn't suspect anything, and then I followed. I kept my distance as she walked down the street, but my heart was pounding like I was in some kind of spy movie. My hands were sweating, and my mind was racing with a million thoughts. What if she really wasn't going to work? What if she was meeting someone else? What if? Then it happened. She didn't go to her job. In fact, she didn't even head in that direction. I followed her for about 10 minutes, but then I lost her. She got into a taxi, and before I could catch the plate number or follow closely enough, it sped off. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I wasn't about to give up that easily, though. I decided to head to her workplace and ask around. When I got there, I saw one of the employees I'd seen a few times before. She recognized me too, probably from the occasional office party or when I'd pick Emma up. I tried to play it cool, asking if Emma was around or maybe on break. That's when the bomb dropped. "Oh, she doesn't work here anymore," the woman said casually like it was the most normal thing in the world. "What do you mean?" I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. "She hasn't worked here for at least 3 months. I thought you knew." My heart nearly stopped. 3 months? Emma had been leaving for work every morning like clockwork. And for 3 months, she hadn't even had a job? I felt like I'd just been sucker punched. I thanked the woman and left the office, my mind spinning in 1,000 different directions. The anger bubbling inside me was white hot. I wanted to go home, wait for her, and tear her a new one. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust. She'd been lying to me every single day. On the way home, I couldn't keep it bottled up any longer. I called my best friend, Matt, and told him everything. I was pissed, and I wasn't thinking clearly. "I'm done with this, Matt," I said, gripping the steering wheel. "I'm going to confront her tonight. She has no idea what's coming." But Matt, being the level-headed guy he is, talked me down. "Dude, don't do anything rash," he said. "You realize your marriage is hanging by a thread, right? If you go in guns blazing, you might never find out the whole truth. What if there's more going on than you think?" He had a point, as much as I hated to admit it. If I blew up now, I might never find out who she was really seeing or why she was lying. And honestly, I wasn't ready to throw in the towel without getting the full story. "I need your help," I told him. "I need to figure out what's going on." Matt agreed, and we made a plan. The next day, I pretended to go to work like usual, but instead, Matt and I would tail her together. He had a better car for this kind of thing anyway. Tinted windows, smooth ride, no one would suspect a thing. So that's what we did. I got up, dressed for work, kissed Emma goodbye like nothing was wrong, and walked out the door. But instead of heading to my office, I met Matt at the corner, hopped into his car, and we followed her. She took a taxi again, and this time we kept up. She didn't head to some cheap motel or a friend's place. Nope. The taxi took her to one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. We're talking gated communities, million-dollar houses, the kind of place where people don't just have a nice car. They have several. Emma got out of the taxi, glanced around like she was making sure no one was watching, and walked up to one of those fancy houses. Here's the kicker. She didn't knock or ring the doorbell. She pulled out a key and unlocked the door like she owned the place. Matt and I stayed parked on the street, watching. The house was huge, and it had the kind of driveway that screamed money. We sat there all day, waiting, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. The sun was setting when the door finally opened again, and Emma stepped out. This time, she wasn't alone. A man followed her. Tall, well-dressed, probably in his mid-40s, and everything about him screamed wealthy. He had his arm around her like they were a couple, like they were used to each other's touch. That's when Matt pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the guy. "Let's see who this asshole is," Matt muttered as we started Googling the guy's face. It didn't take long. Turns out, the man walking arm in arm with my wife was some big-time businessman. A real estate mogul, if you can believe it. He was all over the internet. Articles, interviews, charity galas, the works. And the icing on the cake? We found his Instagram profile. There were plenty of pictures of him, all right? But none of them were with Emma. Nope. His Instagram was full of photos with a completely different woman. His wife. I felt like I was going to be sick. There it was, right in front of me. The proof I'd been dreading. My wife, the woman I'd been living with, sleeping next to, planning a future with, had been living a double life. And this guy? He wasn't just some random fling. He was married too. Matt and I sat there in silence, the weight of everything sinking in. We knew we couldn't act yet. Not without more. I had to go home, pretend like everything was fine, like I hadn't just watched my wife walk out of another man's house. I couldn't blow up. Not yet. I told Matt we'd deal with it tomorrow. We'd have to. But tonight, I had to keep my cool. I had to go home and play dumb like I was none the wiser. So that's what I did. I went home, walked through the door, and kissed her like nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew everything had. After the shock of what I had seen the previous day, I couldn't let it go. The image of Emma walking out of that house with another man, all smiles, haunted me. My brain was working overtime. I knew I had to do something, but what? Blowing up at Emma didn't seem like the right move. Not yet. I needed more information. That's when I got an idea. The businessman. I couldn't stop thinking about him. His face, his profile, his life on display for the world to see, but with a wife who wasn't Emma. I went back to his Instagram page and started scrolling through his photos again. Pictures of his life of luxury, trips to exotic locations, fine dining, but always with his actual wife by his side. She was beautiful too, not in the flashy, materialistic way Emma was, but in a more understated, elegant way. It didn't take long to find her. She was in several of his photos and her account was tagged. I clicked on her profile. It was private, but that didn't matter. I wasn't interested in snooping through her posts. I had a more direct approach in mind. I sat there for a few minutes, wondering how to phrase the message. I knew this wasn't going to be easy for her, and I didn't want to come off like a complete psycho. So I kept it simple. Hi, I'm reaching out because I have some important information about your husband. I'd rather not say too much over a message. Can we meet? I think it's something you'd want to know, and we can do it in a public place, whatever makes you feel comfortable. I hit send and waited, unsure if she'd even respond. But she did. It didn't take long. Within an hour, she replied, agreeing to meet the next day at a busy cafe downtown. The next day, I arrived early, nerves buzzing through me. I wasn't sure what to expect from this meeting. Would she be angry? Would she not believe me? But when she walked in, she was calm, composed. She had that same quiet grace about her that I'd seen in her photos. We sat down, exchanged some polite small talk, and then I told her everything. I didn't hold anything back. How I had followed Emma, the house, the photos, the fact that her husband was cheating on her with my wife. She listened, not showing much emotion at first. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, I need to check this out for myself. Give me your number, and I'll be in touch. She didn't seem surprised or devastated. It was like she had been expecting this, or at least wasn't shocked that her husband could be capable of it. She stood up, thanked me for telling her, and left, leaving me sitting there wondering if I had done the right thing. A week passed. It was the hardest week of my life. I had to act like nothing was wrong at home, like I was still the clueless husband, while in reality, I knew everything. Emma was still going to work every day, but now I knew exactly where she was going. Each time she kissed me goodbye, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Then a week later, I got the call. It was her. Can you come to my house? She asked. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, and I knew something was up. I agreed, and later that day, I found myself pulling up to her place. A huge, elegant home, far nicer than the apartment Emma and I shared. She greeted me at the door, and as I stepped inside, she led me to the living room. There was a bottle of wine on the table, 2 glasses, but I could tell this wasn't just a casual conversation. I hired a detective, she said, getting straight to the point. He confirmed what you told me. My husband has been renting that house for months, meeting your wife there, and he's been buying her expensive things, jewelry, clothes, phones. The whole lot. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a long sip, and looked me in the eye. I'm going to ruin him, she said, her voice cold and matter-of-fact. He thinks he can get away with this, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. I could feel the weight of her words. This wasn't a woman who was going to sit back and let her husband walk all over her. She had a plan, and it wasn't going to end well for him. She finished her wine and refilled the glass. Then she turned to me, sizing me up for a moment. Do you want some wine? She asked, and I nodded. I wasn't about to refuse. I needed something to take the edge off, and maybe we both did. We talked for a while after that. She told me about her life, how her father had started the business her husband now ran. Her father was wealthy and powerful, the kind of man whose name opened doors and closed others. She didn't mention his name outright, and I got the feeling it was better that way. This was a woman who had been born into power and privilege, and she knew how to use it. We had a few drinks, and the conversation flowed more easily after that. She was smart, sharp, and honestly a little intimidating. But then, without any pretense or build-up, she asked me something I wasn't expecting. Do you want to have sex? It wasn't flirtatious or seductive. It was just a question, plain and simple. I stared at her for a moment, caught off guard, but then I realized I didn't need to think too hard about my answer. Yes, I said. The next hour or so was a blur of heat and intensity. She was an experienced woman. There was no doubt about that. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she took it. There wasn't any guilt or shame, no hesitation. It felt almost transactional in a way, but I didn't care. I was too caught up in the moment, in the escape from everything that had been crushing me. When it was over, I left her house, feeling strangely satisfied. Not just from the sex, but from the fact that for once I felt like I had control over something in this mess. She wasn't just some scorned wife. She was a woman on a mission, and I was a part of that now, whether I liked it or not. When I got home that night, after everything that had happened with the businessman's wife, I couldn't keep pretending anymore. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew it was time to confront Emma. I didn't care about playing it cool, not after everything I'd seen, not after what she'd done. I slammed the door shut behind me, and the sound must have startled her because she turned to look at me with this wide-eyed expression, like she knew what was coming. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but shaking with anger. She barely looked up from her phone, still scrolling, still acting like nothing was wrong. But I wasn't having it. I walked straight up to her and threw it all out there. "I know everything," I said, my voice rising. "I know about the businessman, about the house, about the lies. You think I'm that stupid? You're a fucking fool if you think I wouldn't find out." That got her attention. She dropped her phone and stood up, her face twisting into something between anger and disgust. But she didn't even try to deny it. "So what?" she snapped. "I don't need you. I haven't needed you for a long time. You're just some placeholder. He's the one who's providing for me now. He loves me. He's going to leave his wife, and we're going to be together." The audacity of it all hit me like a freight train. She was standing there, telling me, proudly telling me, that she had been waiting for him to dump his wife for her. It was pathetic. "You really think he's going to leave his wife for you?" I asked, laughing bitterly. "You're delusional." She glared at me, arms crossed, like she couldn't believe I wasn't bowing down to her fantasy. "He will," she insisted. "You'll see. I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice dead serious. "You can go live in your little dream world, but I'm done with this. We're done." She scoffed. "Good. You should have done that a long time ago." And just like that, she grabbed her bag, threw a few things into it, and walked out the door without another word. No apologies, no remorse, just cold indifference. But she had no idea what was about to hit her in a few days. A few days later, everything fell apart for her and her beloved businessman. His wife, no, that woman, the one with the quiet power, wasn't just sitting around after our conversation. She was planning her revenge. With the help of her father, she dismantled her husband's business, leaving him without a thread to his name. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine, but I didn't care enough to dig into the details. All I knew was that Emma's little fantasy life crumbled just as quickly as it had started. As for me, I filed for divorce, and the process moved faster than I expected. Emma didn't fight it. Why would she? She had already moved on, or so she thought. Then, out of the blue, I got another call from the businessman's wife. She invited me to visit her again. I didn't know what to expect, but I went. When I arrived, she poured me a glass of wine, and we sat in her living room. "So," she said, looking at me with a calm, calculating expression, "what do you want in exchange for all this information?" At first, I told her I didn't want anything. I was just glad to see the truth come to light. But then I thought about it. I'd been stuck in a dead-end job for so long, and I did have an idea that I'd been sitting on for a while. "There is one thing," I said. "I have a startup idea. It's still rough, but it has potential." She listened carefully, but when I finished explaining, she shook her head. "No," she said flatly. "Not like this. Come back tomorrow with a solid plan." I didn't waste any time. I spent the entire night working on my idea, refining it, turning it into something real. The next day, when I went back to her house, she wasn't alone. There was another man with her, a business analyst. He listened to my pitch, asked a few questions, and then he turned to her and whispered something. She nodded slowly, then turned to me. "All right," she said, "I'll invest, but I want 35% of the business if it becomes profitable." I was stunned. I knew she was powerful, but I didn't think she'd actually take me seriously. This was more than I had ever hoped for. I agreed to her terms without hesitation. And now, here I am, writing this while putting together a team to get my startup off the ground. I can't go into details yet, but I know it's going to be profitable. I can feel it. Funny how things turn out, huh? What started as the worst period of my life is turning into something that could change everything for me. Thank you, Reddit, for letting me get this all out. Sometimes life takes you down a road you never expected, but maybe that's the point. You don't always know what's waiting on the other side. Update, it's been about a year since everything went down, and looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. I'm sitting here in my office. Yeah, my office, writing this update, and I can't help but feel a mix of pride and disbelief at how much my life has changed. Things are good, really good, and I owe a lot of that to the lessons I learned during the darkest time of my life. Let me start with the business. The startup I mentioned? It took off faster than I ever expected. The woman who invested in me, the businessman's ex-wife, kept her word. She gave me the capital I needed, and I built a team that believed in the vision I had. It wasn't easy. Those first few months were brutal. Late nights, endless meetings, tweaking the product until it was perfect, but it all paid off. The business now is thriving. We've got a steady stream of clients, and we're growing at a rate I didn't think possible when I was just dreaming about this idea. And before you ask, my relationship with her, the investor, it's strictly business. She's a sharp woman, no nonsense, and she keeps everything professional. We meet regularly, but it's always about the company. There are no hidden agendas, no awkward moments, nothing like what happened between us that first time. We both moved on, and it works. Now let's talk about the fun part, my ex-wife Emma. Yeah, she came crawling back. I didn't think she would, not after how things ended between us. But once news started spreading about my business doing well, she suddenly remembered I existed. It started with a message. Simple at first, just a hey, how have you been? Like she hadn't blown up our life and walked out the door for some other guy. I didn't respond. Then the messages started piling up. Longer, more desperate. She started hinting at how much she missed me, how she made a mistake, how she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. Classic, right? The cherry on top was when she called me one evening, trying to sound sweet and remorseful. She said all the things you'd expect. I still care about you. We had something special. Maybe we could start over. But the truth is, she didn't give a damn about me. She just saw the money, the success, and thought she could slither back into my life like nothing had happened. I let her talk for a bit, then I just told her to go to hell. Flat out. I don't know if she expected me to say that, but the silence on the other end of the line told me all I needed to know. I hung up and never looked back. Let her live in the mess she created. But enough about her. There's someone new in my life now. I met this girl a few months ago. Let's call her Sarah. She's different. No drama, no baggage, no hidden motives. We met in the most random way at a friend's party, and we just clicked. She's funny, smart, down-to-earth, and she doesn't give a damn about the material stuff. She doesn't know about my business yet, at least not the details. I've been keeping that part of my life under wraps, not because I don't trust her, but because I want to make sure she's with me for me, not for the money or the success. We've been spending a lot of time together, and yeah, I'm really starting to like her. It's nice, actually, being with someone who doesn't expect anything from me except for honesty and just being myself. It's refreshing after everything I've been through. I'm not in any rush to tell her about the business. Maybe one day, when it feels right. But for now, I'm enjoying just getting to know her without any of the complications. So, that's where I'm at now. A year ago, I was stuck in the middle of the worst period of my life, with everything falling apart around me. And now I'm running a successful business, surrounded by people who believe in what we're building. I've got my life back, and I've got something more, hope for the future. I want to end this by thanking everyone who's been reading this, who's been following my story. Sometimes life throws you into situations that seem impossible to survive, but trust me, if I can get through it, so can you. Believe in yourself, in your ability to come out stronger, and never let anyone take away your worth. Success isn't just about money or power. It's about learning from the pain, moving forward, and becoming the best version of yourself. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful for the lessons, as brutal as they were. To anyone reading this, Whether you're in the middle of your own mess or just trying to figure things out, keep going. Believe in the best, and don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve it. Thank you, Reddit, for being there through it all.